Hello, hello, everyone. I'm your host, Karen Yankovich, and this is the Good Girls Get Rich podcast. And I am so excited for the guest we have with us today, Amber McCue. Amber and I have known each other a long time. We actually met in person, I think, one time, but I don't
Yeah.
think more than one time. I don't know. Maybe Amber has a better memory than me. But let me tell you a little bit about Amber because you guys are going to love her. Amber was a single mom at the age of 18 to running 3 companies that allow her to work from anywhere with her family, from Ethiopia to Chicago to Cote d'Ivoire to California. Amber has a background in corporate consulting and studied in the Johns Hopkins Organization Development MBA program, which lends well to the strategic consulting she does with modern CEOs at ambermccue.com and the How to Clone Yourself experience for entrepreneurs. Putting all things how to clone yourself to work, Amber grew her first business from a side hustle to a multi-million-dollar company that operated in more than 26 cities across the US. She purchased her first company, an online education company, in 2022. And when Amber's not working with her clients, she's enjoying time with her family and friends on an adventure. So, Amber, I'm so happy to be doing this with you.
Oh my gosh, it's so great to be here with you again. And I think you're right. I think we did only meet one time, but the time I remember is we were meeting up in Philly. Amy, Scott, Jessica, a small group
Jessica
of
Kupferman. And Jess was pregnant and her kids now, in college, maybe no, but like at least in grammar school, right?
Absolutely. 11, 12 maybe. Yeah.
It was a long time ago. So we've been at this online business stuff for a while.
Oh my gosh. It's incredible. It's incredible to see what you have done and then to just have memories come up and think about how much we've been through.
Exactly. And how much has changed? I would love to talk a little bit about that. Just how much has changed since this whole, or since I started in this whole shebang. But I feel like I was an early adopter of a lot of this stuff, as were you. But tell everybody where you currently are. You've been all over the world. Where are you today?
Oh my gosh. Today I'm sitting in the Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, which is in West Africa, we're just like 2 hours north of Ghana, which is usually a place people recognize more than Cote d'Ivoire or the Ivory Coast.
Awesome. What brings you there?
My husband works he's in the foreign service. So we move and follow his job. And then of course we designed my businesses so I could work from anywhere. And that was strategic. That was by design. It took a lot of time, but it worked out really well.
Yeah, that's fun. That's awesome. Well, I'm at the Jersey Shore, not quite as exciting as the coast of Africa, but hence the background is not my normal background. It's kind of the dining room at the beach house, but it works for me. And I love that I can kind of work from anywhere. And so we'll see how this internet thing goes. We were having a couple little glitches to get started, but hopefully we'll get through this and it will all be good. I love so many things about what you do and the how to clone yourself. But I guess what I want to hear a little bit about, because I don't know anything about this, is you purchased a company last year or 2 years ago. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. This was an interesting situation. A former client of mine who is also a foreign service family member wanted to sell her business. And the business is teaching U.S. history to children who are in international schools with their foreign service parents. And they're not getting U.S. history in those international schools. They're getting a great education, otherwise, and innovative teaching strategies and cool stuff is happening, but they're missing out on core elements of U.S. history. So we teach kids in grades K through 8 U.S. history, all online. So it's a model I really understand. I really know because of my businesses and growing my own consulting business. But it's with kids. It's so fun.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Well, why don't you take us back to when we first met? No, take us back a few years to what started you in online business. And I know for you, and it is the same for me. A lot of what I do is so that I can fit it around raising my kids, and now in my case, raising my grandkids. And I basically, so I wasn't a single mom at 18, but I was a mom at 20. And a single mom not too far after that. So it is a kind of a unique perspective to always have had to be responsible to keep the roof over your head and somebody else's head, right? So I feel like as I've gone through the years of meeting so many people in the online business world, I've always had the need to make it a real business, right? I've always had the need to make it a real business. It needed to always have income coming in, right?
The income situation, it's interesting. I've been thinking about this a lot lately because now I finally, for the first time in really all of my adult life, am settling into this idea of, oh, we're in a joint partnership. I mean, I've been married for a long while, but right, coming up and having to grow and build a business while having to maintain and think about, okay, I got to make sure we are taken care of. There is a lot of mindset that comes up there and a lot that is really ingrained. So now I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like now I'm just starting to feel that relief. And, my money mindset's pretty strong. And we as business owners always know how we can figure out a way to make money, but it's still tucked back there in my subconscious. And just now I'm untangling it. Like my oldest daughter's 25 years old. So 25 years later, I'm like, oh, okay. We're doing it.
Right, exactly. And your money mindset, I love that your money mindset's strong. And, as there's, I wish I could tell you that I never had fantasies in all those years of a paycheck, like, oh, it's Friday, there's money in my bank, right?
Yeah.
Like there's definitely been years where I was like, oh gosh, remember paychecks? So because it is it's a very different thing. But one of the things you said, I think is really important is that kind of like, we always know how to make money, which is important in this, I think, in this current business climate.
Yeah.
People are getting laid off and they've never had to make their own money. They've always had a paycheck in their bank account on Friday, right? So now they're maybe faced with having to look at alternatives to that.
You mentioned that there are roller coasters and you worry and you wonder. And I think we are in one of those, like it has been an interesting ride. I mean, probably starting in 2020. And then I think we just never got off of it. And sometimes it was great. And sometimes it was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And I think for a lot of people, from what I hear from clients, from what I'm seeing and experiencing, even personally, right? I'm like, oh, this is different. Things feel different, in addition to the business landscape changing and how we're connecting with people and how we're meeting up and how we're getting introduced and how marketing is happening. I mean, LinkedIn, look at the evolution of LinkedIn over the last 12 years.
Right.
I've been looking at things. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much to learn, right? Because we can't keep up with all of it. This is why we turn to our experts. But man, it's rapidly changing. Everything's rapidly changing. And that pace is sometimes can be overwhelming to keep up with.
Which is why we need to learn how to clone ourselves.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Because it can be my vision when I probably, I'm not even sure if when we met, but definitely in 2012, I still had a corporate job and I was running my business. And I had this vision of quitting my job and having all this time and doing yoga every morning and, like having like lunch dates with my friends, which I eventually, kind of found a way to do. But in the beginning, I was still in my pajamas at 8:00 at night. Like, there was just no way, there was just so much because at that point now, once I gave up the security of the paycheck and what I didn't realize was I probably have more security now than I had then, which we've learned in the last 5 years. Right. But at the time I didn't know that. So I was really working pretty freaking hard to kind of catch up or make up. So, it's so interesting because there's the like bootstrap mindset, but then also that holds you back, right? So if you really want to make a real living out of your venture, your entrepreneurial ventures, learning how to clone yourself is important. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. And the idea of cloning yourself is so fun. That feeling that, man, I wish I had a clone. Wish there was someone who could help with this. I wish I could multiply my efforts, multiply my results. And the beautiful thing is that the technology is not quite there yet. And maybe this is also a good thing and A-okay. But we don't actually want a clone of you because you have a zone of genius. You have an expertise and that works really well. We want someone to offset, right? As we're building businesses, and this goes beyond just the owner, but you may want clones of your team members as you multiply, scale, and grow. But it's someone who fills the gap in the business, who does that thing that you don't want to do, or that you procrastinate, or that you're not great at, so that we can offset our strengths and weaknesses. I sort of think like the milk to the cookies, the yin to the yang, the coffee to the donuts.
Yes.
Like, where do we find that balance so that we can multiply our efforts without us having to do all the things, especially those things that we are not great at? And there's a great stat in the book Business Brilliant by Lewis Schiff. And he compares the difference between those who stay in the middle class and those who move to self-made millionaire, we know, millionaire or billionaire status. And those who stay in the middle class I'll DIY it. I'll DIY it. We keep trying to
Yep.
DIY it. Those who move to self-made millionaire, billionaire, we will look for someone who can do that thing better than we can. And 9 out of 10 times, we will share the work.
Right. 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 It's so true. I remember when I first hired my first VA, I was so nervous about it. And it was at the time, it was like, you didn't pay up front. You got to bill at the end of the month for however many hours you used. And I was so worried about it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, wow, because she could do in so much less time what I could do. Right. So even though I was giving her stuff, it was happening so fast. And I felt like her hourly rate was high, but she was so fast that it didn't matter. And then I'm like, all right, let me see. And then I just started dumping on her and giving her more stuff I didn't want to do. And I don't think I ever paid her more than $1,000 in a month, and she was, a regular, US based VA. It wasn't like I was paying somebody, an overseas rate. But it was so freeing. It was so freeing because not only does it free up your to-do list, it frees up your brain, right? You can sit down at your desk with creativity, not, oh my gosh, let me bang out this 10-mile long to-do list before I can get creative.
Yes, you spot on. And the way that you're getting leverage, right? You were able to share that work. Someone's doing it faster. Yeah, maybe the rate's higher, but you're getting an ROI. And we always want to look for that ROI, of course. And you're getting the ROI because you're able to focus on better leveraged activities for your business.
Exactly. And it was even things like I learned, as an entrepreneur, certainly not before that. I learned as an entrepreneur how even just the things I pay for around my house contribute to the success of my business, right? Like I want a, cleaning person or a housekeeper or somebody to, whatever, like all the things that I thought were kind of little luxuries are really not. They're really, they allow me to be where I want to be, to grow, to be successful in my business.
Yeah, it's so true. I am so bad. Dishes are one thing that I'm grateful. My husband, they bug him. They do not bug me. I'll somebody will get to them later. He will get to them later because they drive him bananas. And then laundry is the other thing. Although I impressed myself in COVID, I was awesome at laundry. I don't know what happened in that window. I'm like, I'm home. I can, things are unwinding, but otherwise laundry is the other thing I'm not so good at.
Yeah, I have a laundry problem. I'm practically pulling socks off of my family's feet when I need to do a load of laundry. So my laundry's caught up, but I love just things like you can walk into the kitchen and see that the stove probably needs a cleaning and you're like, oh, she's coming tomorrow. We can sit there till tomorrow. Like that kind of thing, right? Frees me up to go back, frees up my brain and my time, right? So what made you so good at this clone yourself stuff? Like what brought you to doing that kind of work?
It's funny. I think I naturally developed a knack for this because I was a single mom. I had to juggle a lot, right? You know how it goes where I was in college. I had a single daughter, like, okay, this is a lot to balance. And then I was working in college with a daughter. So I naturally sort of came to this, but also in corporate, my experience was really well lined up. I worked on talent management, internal operations, at a talent-based consulting firm, a people consulting firm. Then I went to apply and run operations and keep things smooth running at a large database marketing company. Then I had stepped into a client-facing marketing role. So as I'm stacking all of these things up, these skills, experience, I'm like, oh, we know how to run a business and keep things moving smooth. And I was partnering with leaders to do this. And it was when I started my own business, I was working in the photography business and I was messaging with a friend, another colleague who was working on her business from another part of the world at the time. And she said, Amber, don't you ever just wish you could clone yourself? It's like, oh my gosh, that's the only way I am able to do all of the things I was doing. I know how to clone myself. This is something other business owners need to know how to do. So ever since then, that was 2012, maybe. Ever since then, we're always integrating this idea of how can you clone yourself, multiply your results, multiply your profit, multiply, your outcomes without you doing more. And so much of that comes through being able to run your business well, because it's one thing to be able to market and deliver a service once. Okay, I did it. All right. How do we make these things repeatable on repeat? And that's when you start to get leverage and scale and freedom. Yeah.
Right. Well, and then you've also kind of, I'm going to say morphed it, but maybe it's completely separate, like kind of morphed it into also this concept of the modern CEO, right? Because
Yes.
it's so interesting because I have, I'm born and raised in New Jersey. I still live in New Jersey. So I have a lot of business friends in New Jersey that are premise-based businesses, right? Or accountants or whatever, right? Things like that. And there's a difference between people that are comfortable dealing with brick and mortar businesses
Yeah.
and online businesses, or even just modern businesses, right? And I remember
Mhm.
having a business session one time with a colleague of mine, a friend of mine who is a money person, and we were sitting down, and she was asking me things like, "What's this Entreport stuff for like $300 a month?" And I'm like, like that's the that's the engine that runs my business. She's like, well, that's crazy. And she didn't get how important that was. And it's not that she wasn't good at
Oh,
that, but she wasn't a modern, she wasn't focused
yeah.
on modern businesses. Right.
You know,
So I love, and a lot of people don't even realize there is a difference, even talking
gosh.
about like business valuations and stuff like that. It's almost like there's still two separate mindsets around brick and mortar
Mhm.
businesses and virtual businesses. So I love that you're kind of stepping into being a modern CEO and how you can be profitable all the way to your $1 million business. So how did you morph to that then from the cloning yourself?
Oh man. Well, the how to clone yourself model as we originally designed it included systems, team building, training, and team training. Oh, and then a set, like prioritization. Like I got all these
Hmm.
things I need to do. What goes to systems? What goes to training? And then navigating that time element. And I was looking at the whole engine, like, oh, we got to streamline everything. So the modern EO became, these are your running of the business systems. We've got your sales systems. We've got your client success systems. And yeah, at some point you're going to need team. So we rounded out the full sort of modern CEO element. And you're so spot on as we think about brick and mortar, like my photography business, brick and mortar, right? You have to be in person.
Right,
We had
right.
studio spaces we had to go shoot in, but we are using everything modern to make that work, because if you don't, we will get left behind, right? So
Hmm.
you've got to be able to connect with your clients where they are showing up, right? They are a laundry service, actually, new laundry service. They're marketing their services by an app. And you can pull through the app and you
I
can
love it.
order services through the app. Now, certainly when I was getting my laundry picked up and dropped off in Long Beach in 2017, there was not an app. I would place
Right,
a phone call, right?
right.
So there are these elements of, oh, we have to step forward. And all of those elements, there are a lot of automations. There are a lot of things we can put in place that are going to make even running a brick and mortar business so much smoother. And then I think in online business, we miss out a lot of like, oh, what brick and mortar brings. Because man, brick and mortar brings that personal connection, which we lose
Yes.
online. So there's this blending and this merging that some things are better. Some things are like, ooh, arguably not better. But how do we bring them together so that
Hmm.
your business runs well? You can actually get some of that freedom that you were looking for when you started going down this path, and your clients are still really well taken care of.
Right. Right. So important. And it's so many people, especially now, especially in this, post-pandemic world, if that's what we're living in now, where
Yeah.
people maybe have lost their job, maybe they're entrepreneurs for the first time. They may be really, really good at what they do. They may be worth $500 an hour as a consultant, but they do not know how to run the business, right? They do
Yeah.
not know what are, what's good debt, what's not good debt, what's expenses, how to get that support, where you can clone yourself, what you should do. And I think it's even more important now that we understand that. How could you know that? Like, right, just because
Yeah.
you're really good at teaching yoga, how could, if you're not a successful yoga studio, it's not because you're not a great yoga teacher. It's probably
Yeah.
because you haven't really embraced the business owner mentality, the
Yes.
CEO
Spot
mentality.
on. Yeah. And we are taught to be great employees, right? We crank it out, productivity. And when I have a mindset of like me coming up early in my career, I'm like, oh, I can get a lot done. Like that vision of me
Yes.
being leaned over the computer, hands on keyboard, typing, getting lots of typing done and getting a lot of work done. So we're taught to produce. But when we step into that CEO level role and owner role and to really get the freedom, You got to stop the high levels of productivity, and you've got to shift how you get productivity and think about the future. Have that creative time, vision, create, especially in a changing landscape like this. If you don't have time, if you're just producing all the time on an old way of connecting with clients, on an old way of doing things, man, we are going to get left behind. I mean, and I say we, because same thing for me. I have to be very strategic. I'm like, oh man, landscape's changing.
Yes,
I have
yes.
to carve out time to think through, how is my customer showing up now? How are they connecting now? Is this the right way anymore? Is the thing I did 10 years ago still the right thing? Maybe some of it, but probably not all of it. So you really got to have that time to think, or people are going to be speeding past you. Which some people probably have felt and experienced recently, I'm sure, because it's rapid right now.
It is.
Karen, I read something, technology, rapid advancements used to be made about every 10 years. And then it's closing to every 3 years. And the gap, I would imagine in the last year, it's moved to like every year, there's a rapid technological advancement that changes how we do everything.
Yeah. I was thinking as you were talking too, I read something recently, and this is probably the third time I've mentioned this in the last 2 days. So I probably need to find this thing that I keep mentioning, but it's something about that, back in the horse and buggy days or whatever, when the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, the 40-hour work week came about, there was not as much, there wasn't as much information coming at us all the time. So so what we're experiencing now is, it's not even the hours that we're putting in, it's the amount of information that's coming at us in those hours. And it's too much. Like our brains can't process the amount of information that's coming at us for 40 hours a week. So it's not about being lazy or not willing to do the work. It's about like our brains are not meant to take in this much information and to process through and bang out, like it used to be, you go on vacation, you come back. Now you go on vacation, you come back, and it takes you till your next vacation to catch up on your emails, right? Like, so it's a new thing. And I think we have to understand that it's a thing and learn to adapt to it and learn to modify it so that we can continue to be successful.
Yeah, I think you're right. I've seen the data on that as well. And it is wild. I wish I had those numbers also off the top of my head, because the amount of what we're taking in is out of control. And when it comes to vacation, we recommend you do a vacation test. So if anyone could relate to what you just said, like, I go on a vacation, it's as much work or more to catch up. And oh boy, do I really want to take a vacation? But with the vacation test, what I invite people to work towards is, you or a high-performing team member, a key team member that you have, should also be able to pass the vacation test in their role. But the goal is that you go on vacation and you don't get any phone calls, you don't get any pings, everything's kind of taken care of. And then you come back and you do not have to dig out of a month-long hole for a 1-week vacation that, things are taken care of. I can just ignore, delete, it's done. So there is this element, because I actually
sounds like everybody that's listening needs to take her modern CEO course, so we all know how to do this.
We got to redesign some things. Yeah, because this came up because a team member every time she'd come back from vacation, she's like, "Oh, I have to catch up on all of these notifications." Like, what are you talking about? And for her, I was like, Megan, I got the short list for you. Everything was fine where you were out, because we made sure it would be fine. We handed off well. We had things streamlined and systematized. Like, I think if you do these two things and hit red on the rest of your notifications, you'll be fine. Oh, a game changer. But that's because we have the systems and the structure in place. And then it's mindset. The final frontier, like the final step is, okay, is it really okay? It's really okay.
Yeah.
Once you get your systems in place.
Yeah. So important. So important. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It is. I've started taking what I'm calling halftime vacations, where because I want to be, obviously I want to be able to be where I want to be. I want to be able to, if I go to, let's say I want to go to Florida for a month, I'm not working, right? But I also want to have more time. And it's so interesting because as I get older, I love what I do. I'm not looking to leave what I do anytime soon, but my friends are also getting older and they're retiring and they're saying, "What are you doing on Wednesday, Karen? We're going to Broadway to see a show." And I'm like, I got calls all day Wednesday, so even though I love what I do and I'm not really looking to stop doing what I do, I'm finding that I do want to have times in my year outside of vacation that I want to have, I want to be able, so I'm calling them like halftime vacation. So I've been experimenting with that a little bit so that if I'm, if I am away and like I'm going to California for a couple of weeks this summer, and those will probably be halftime. There'll be a few true vacation. There'll be some vacation time, and then there'll be some like halftime vacation time so that because I do want to continue to do the things I do. So it's just it's an interesting issue, I guess. I guess it's an issue because I can work from anywhere, but that doesn't mean I want to work from everywhere.
Exactly. It's so true. We got to put it down. I feel the same way. I take a good bit of vacation per year, and I could take my work anywhere. And when we go home, we go back to the States for we're going to go back for about 6 weeks this summer. And I have some call days, but I won't have big projects, big deadlines, big deliverables. So I don't have that pressure with me. And you're right. I don't want to work everywhere either. I too love what I do, but I've also redesigned my life in a way that I'm like, oh, I really love my life. And I want to go on those adventures, and I want to be doing things with family and friends. And I want to be present for my kids when they come home, but it's still working hours for a little bit in the US. So it's balancing and redesigning all of these things. But when we get intentional about it, we really, okay, how could this work? Let's set up framework structures around it. It is possible. It is so possible. And you're doing it. This is a perfect example of, I got to redesign some things. So halftime vacations, more halftime vacations.
Yeah. So that's kind of that's something I've been experimenting with this year, but it is important. I think, I'd love to get your take on this because, I think we probably met when we both took B school back in I took it, I think 2012, right? So it's an online course, all videos, Marie Forleo shows up for some group calls, but it's a lot of online course stuff. And over the years, I probably have many gigs worth of online courses in my hard drive somewhere. And I'm kind of over that. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think that the landscape is changing and people want more one-on-one support. They want you to help them with this. They want to help, which I think is great. Help get some, let's sit down and actually figure this out instead of, taking the course and knowing how to do it. And with B school, it was mostly it was really broad, right? You got all this marketing stuff and all this other stuff. But there wasn't a lot of how do you run a business. Right. There wasn't a lot of how do you run a business. So I love that you're tackling that because I think as we are shifting into whatever it is we're shifting into, it becomes even more important. The how do you run the business stuff becomes more important, right? So that the business can keep running as you maybe have to shift what you're delivering, how you're delivering things and who you're delivering them to.
Yeah, it's so true. It's funny. I got great insights and met great people in B school. And people will say to me, this is the follow-up. Like the modern CEO is the follow-up to
so cool.
an experience like that because it's a lot of marketing and there's a lot of content creation and it's going to get you going. But then you're running a business and it's like, oh my gosh, what the heck?
Right.
What is this? And what does it really look like? And what do I do? And how do I spend that time where I'm being visionary? So we go through a lot of that. And I think it's so interesting. I think what I'm seeing, Karen, and I'm not sure if this is real or if this is just what's coming up in my feeds. I am seeing a tremendous number of micro courses, micro lessons at lower price points. All the way through to the high end, done for you. Let's just get in and do this. So I'm seeing a wide variety of things, but I do think it's important that as we're shifting and this landscape is shifting, when people need help, we need it now. And waiting, there used to be a B school enrollment, or when we sort of started walking down this path, it was a lot of enrollment once a year, twice a year at certain times. I think there's a definite shift in consumer buying behavior to, I need this help now. Can someone, is this it? And I certainly, I don't like watching video courses. So I'm the same, that is going to sit on a shelf. And that's why we deliver all of our training in multiple formats, live. And we take a more consultative approach than we do consulting, because if you've got something happening in your business, let's talk about it. I've got a framework,
Yes.
We need to
Yep.
modify that for your business because you do business different and you
Yep.
have different goals and you have different cash flow requirements, et cetera. There are all sorts
Right.
of things that we need to look at. You work differently. So you can't take my role description and just plug that in. We need to adapt that. So we go through those customizations with people. One of my favorite things in terms of how we deliver the experience is we have something called the hotline where people can message me, video, text, or audio anytime. And I will send them a video, text, or audio back. And it's private. It's not in a big group.
Yep.
And I think there's something there too. Like I love groups, but they can also be distracting.
Yep.
So I sort of go like, oh, keep people like get sticky and keep people engaged in community, or go do your business. We're here for you at these points.
Right. Oh my gosh. We're so aligned. We're so aligned on that. We're moving more to some of what you just described as well, because I think you're right. Like even coaching, like I'm even taking as I'm saying this, it's kind of brand new. So if you're hearing me say this and you're interested in this, reach out and I'll let you know if I decided to do it or not. But like even coaching, like, like once a week or once a month or however often we meet, like what happens in between all of that, and you've got access to me, but I think about myself. I think, well, I've got a call on Wednesday. It'll wait till Wednesday, but it doesn't. And then those calls on Wednesdays are just like, I agree with you. I think there's more of a need for, and I think also me I don't consider myself a coach as much as a consultant, but I think I work better when people hit me with things when they're happening so I can help them with it at that moment instead of trying to recreate it 4 days later, and trying to do that. And I think that it solves the issues and helps people move more quickly forward with their business. And here's the thing, like the things that I'm assuming the modern CEO solves based on what you're describing, and even some of the things that we work on, these are expensive mistakes. And I think that's a lesson it took me way too long to learn as an online entrepreneur. I remember when I first hired like a real money person in my business, I was like, it can't possibly cost more money than I'm spending in interest and fees and all the things. You know what I mean? It was almost like a wash by the time it happened. Right. So or overpaying for things because I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm really good at math. I can balance a checkbook. That doesn't mean I know how to run the finances of my business, but understanding that I needed to get help with some of these things and learn some of these things. There were expensive mistakes that when I thought I had to know this stuff,
Man, that's a good point. It is expensive. And once you have this visibility in the lay of the land, even if you don't know all of it in and out, like you're still going to bring in experts for things.
Yes.
But as the business owner, you need to understand how these things are connected. So you know what to look for. So you know what questions to ask your experts. So you can start to see, oh, this is how my marketing impacts my cash flow, my financials. And this is the ROI calculation. I mean, it all pulls together. This is a great point. And it's pricey. It's pricey.
Yeah. And I would rather pay for help than pay for mistakes. I don't know. But again, these are lessons we all learn, which is why we're here, right? To try to help people from, everybody listening is going to make mistakes. Like you're going to make mistakes. It's okay. But learning that it's okay and that we can pivot and adapt is really what is, I think, the makings of a successful business owner, which, we all want to be. Right?
There's another great story out of that book, Business Brilliant, that he tells the story of the JetBlue CEO, who some of you may recall this. There was lots of news around it when JetBlue grounded a flight in a snowstorm in, I believe, New York. I'm not sure which airport, but big snowstorm, flight was grounded for a long time and people were not happy. It was not a good situation. Big mistakes were made from a leadership perspective in that situation. And they're going to happen. No shame. I mean, there's probably some unhappy people out there, but from a leadership, like, okay, no shame. And what did the leader do? He's like, I'm going to go run an airline that doesn't operate in snowstorms. So he's like, I don't want to deal with this again. So he went, I think, to somewhere and worked for an airline in South America. It's like, all right, we've got to have people to talk to when we're making these mistakes. You've got to tap in and get connection. And then we're going to pivot. There'll be another strategy, another way, but we're going to learn through it. But if we can save you some money or save you from some of those mistakes, and accelerate your growth curve. Yes, I am here for that. If I can get you to peace of mind and freedom faster. Yes.
Yeah, same. So what's on deck for you? What's happening in the rest of 2024 and beyond?
Oh my gosh, we got a couple of things. In late May, early June, we have actually a modern CEO free event we'll be hosting and enrollment for the modern CEO. And then in the fall, every fall, Karen, we host the annual planning event of the year for entrepreneurs.
I have been a part of that several times. I was wondering as you were talking, I'm like, I think you did it last year. I think you're still doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Over 11 years, the Planathon. So theplanathon.com, if anybody wants to get on the wait list for that, that'll come in October. We got to stay way away from the election. That is, usually we host it like that first week of November, late October. But since it's an election year, we're going to adjust a little bit there. And then those are the big things we have shaking
So
now.
we can put a link to your free event with the modern CEO in the show notes. You'll get me that so I can
absolutely
put a link.
Yeah.
So look for it in the show notes because you definitely want to take advantage of any free events that Amber is running.
I got you. We do host some highly interactive, engaging events. We try and personalize, try and make it fun because to our point before, like, all right, I've got to carve out this space for learning. Okay, we gotta stay there. We gotta get there. So we try get you the most bang for your buck and make it engaging.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. And how people can find you at Amber McCue, is it ambermccue.com, right? I'll also
Easy.
stuff we'll put in the show notes.
Yeah,
where do you hang out
it.
online? Where do you mostly hang out online?
Instagram.
Or do you hang out online?
Yeah,
Instagram?
Amber McCue and ambermccue.com. Yeah,
okay.
Instagram. I got to get my LinkedIn game reset.
Yeah, if only you knew somebody that could help you with that.
I know. Yeah.
You know what? At the end of the day, all these other platforms come and go. But, one of the things you said earlier that I think is important to maybe kind of wrap this with, when you talked about the difference between in-person, like the brick and mortar and the online, a big part of what I'm committed to is helping people understand that LinkedIn, as much as it's considered a social media platform, and I guess it is, it's really about building human to human relationships and bringing that human, we're still virtual, right? We're still doing a lot of this stuff virtually, like with Zoom meetings and things like that, but bringing your real self to those Zoom meetings and bringing your real self to your online game. And that is where, if you ask 100 people where they got their biggest opportunities from, 99 of them are going to say from a referral, right?
Yeah.
So referrals are happening on LinkedIn. So that's one of the reasons why, and really, I work really hard to help tailor what we do to make it as timeless marketing as possible. That, we have these beautiful tools like LinkedIn that can give us all this insight and help us really show up with our brand in these really positive ways. And let's utilize all that and remember that we still need to meet people, right? And that's really where the bigger opportunities land. So I think we can, we're learning, right? We're learning how to do both. And I think the pandemic taught us that too, right? Like, even though we're not the world's not virtual, we've realized how powerful virtual can be if you remember that there's still humans on the other side of the Zoom microphone and the Zoom camera.
And I think that's why I hear people talking about LinkedIn and YouTube even more, because it's deeper connection and you're there for more time, YouTube hanging out as well as LinkedIn, and the quick hit stuff. People are realizing, man, this is not doing it. This is not doing it for us on so many levels. So this is part of one of those evolutions. We were talking about change, man. We are in it. We are in some change.
We are. It'll be interesting. And I'm wondering if it is because it's an election year, if people are just going like, I don't know. I got to figure out. I don't know. I guess we'll see, right? I guess we'll see. But as we change, we can pivot, and I'm here for that. Amber's here for that. So reach out to either of us. We got you. And thanks so much for being here, Amber.
You're incredible. I love catching up with you. Thank you.
Yeah, let's catch up when you're here in the U.S. Or wherever you are. And for those of you that have that are listeners, if you loved this conversation, make sure you take a quick screenshot of this, share it on your social media, tag me, tag Amber. We'll both share it with our audiences so we can kind of spread the wealth, share the love, rise all the boats, do all the things. And if you're looking to get some additional support on many different levels, we have shifted a lot of things this year with how we deliver our services. KarenYankovich.com/call gets you to our calendar. There's links below for that too. I'd love to see your name there, and we'll see you back here again next week. Thanks for being here, Amber.
Thank you.